A gun pointed directly at my daughter's face. I heard someone shout, "Freeze," and felt my entire body go cold. The person holding the weapon, not a robber, not a criminal, it was our HOA security guard from our own neighborhood. The reason? My daughter looked suspicious, returning to her own home at 10 at night. What this man didn't know, my daughter is an FBI tactical commander who has led some of the most dangerous raids in the country over the past 5 years, and things only went downhill from there. Where are you watching from right now? Drop a comment below and follow along as I tell you the story of how an arrogant HOA security guard dug his own grave when he messed with the wrong family. I'm Michael Johnson, a 58-year-old retired diplomatic officer. I thought I'd seen it all until I moved to Willow Ridge, an upscale gated community in Connecticut that promised peace, security, and luxury living. My wife passed away 5 years ago. My daughter Amy is 26, and unlike her father, chose action over diplomacy. After graduating top of her class at Quantico, she rose swiftly to become an FBI tactical commander. When she called to say she was coming home for R&R after a 2-year counterterrorism assignment, I was ecstatic. We'd lived in Willow Ridge only 3 months when we discovered our HOA was run by Richard Hayes, a 58-year-old former CEO with a God complex, and his trophy wife, Vanessa, enforcing every petty rule with iron authority. Their enforcer was Marcus Hale, a 42-year-old ex-cop dismissed for excessive force, now head of HOA security. That Friday in July, Amy's flight arrived at 10 p.m., and because I forgot to notify security that Marcus and his partner Nolan confronted her. On our porch light lit steps, Marcus leveled a Glock 19 at Amy's face. "I don't care what ID you're showing me. You have no clearance," he shouted. Curtis, sorry Marcus, ordered her to the ground. Amy stood calm, hands visible. Marcus flushed with power until Amy coolly pointed out that pointing a firearm at a federal officer without cause is a felony, and that he lacked a valid security guard weapons license. Marcus sneered about private property, lowered the gun, and threatened to report her to Richard Hayes. Inside, I apologized. Amy hugged me. "It's okay, Dad. I've faced worse," then outlined a plan. This wasn't just one rogue guard. It was a tyrannical system. We needed a long-term strategy against an armed ex-cop and his corrupt HOA bosses. The next morning, Richard Hayes, silver-haired, polished khakis and logo-emblazoned polo, arrived with Vanessa and a formal warning letter. "Unfortunate incident," he called it. I reminded him that pointing a weapon at my daughter was illegal. Vanessa offered false sympathy. Richard insisted his security team was licensed. Then Amy, a tactical commander, quietly interjected, "Would you mind sharing your security personnel's licensing records?" Their forced courtesy cracked. Richard insisted, "All staff meet our standards," and handed over no documents. Amy closed the door on their stunned faces. "They didn't anticipate that," she said. Within days, Linda Peterson, a 65-year-old retired teacher and fellow Willow Ridge resident, revealed a silent faction of neighbors who'd suffered similar petty tyranny. At her kitchen table, we learned most residents paid outrageously high fees to avoid threats and fines. Amy dove into the HOA bylaws. Marcus Hale began stalking our property. Meanwhile, Vanessa organized tea parties where the Johnsons were conspicuously uninvited. Amy tapped public records and discovered a pattern. Dr. Marcus Hale's police force dismissal for brutality, excessively paid by the HOA despite no valid license, HOA fees among the highest in the state with no matching services, shell companies tied to Richard's inner circle receiving inflated contracts. A chance grocery store run turned into a showdown when Vanessa bumped into Amy and sneered about investigations. Amy coolly replied, "Funny, I specialize in financial crimes." The exchange was witnessed by Jessica Miller, a 40-year-old HOA board attorney, who asked Amy for coffee and quietly began sharing her own concerns about finances and abuses. A week later, at the annual HOA meeting, Richard boasted about property values and community standards. When I asked for an itemized security expense breakdown, Richard snapped it was confidential. Jessica, publicly on our side, demanded details. The room went silent. Richard's eyes flicked to Marcus, who loomed menacingly until Officer James Rodriguez, an old family friend on the local PD, approached. Richard rushed through the rest of the agenda and abruptly adjourned, while Marcus blocked our exit. Amy called Rodriguez, who arrived minutes later. Marcus's smugness vanished. "Sir, you're impeding a vehicle," Amy noted. Marcus backed off. Neighbors watched as we drove away. Back home, Amy and I mapped out our evidence. HOA financial records, shell company trails, policing patterns, and unlawful weapon possession. Then came the late-night vandalism, spray-painted obscenities on our fence and uprooted plants, captured by her hidden cameras. Amy grinned. Now they're showing desperation. She assembled Linda, Jessica, Marcus Reed, FBI financial crimes specialist, and Officer Rodriguez to plan the final phase. The following day, an unexpected coalition of neighbors descended on our garden with shovels and paint, led by Jessica. Word spread, Willow Ridge stands with the Johnsons. Meanwhile, Amy, Marcus Reed, and Jessica compiled a comprehensive dossier: financial embezzlement, forged contracts, weapon violations, and emails ordering petty harassment. Richard and Vanessa, sensing revolt, appeared at our door with a mutual non-disclosure and non-litigation agreement. Amy read it coldly. They'd hush our protests if we never questioned finances or file legal claims. Dad, we declined. Richard threatened consequences. Amy calmly noted she was recording and that threatening a federal officer's family is a crime. 3 nights later, Marcus Hale returned with 2 guards, sent to inspect at 3 a.m. Cameras caught them measuring our grass and photographing property. Then they defaced our garden again. Amy restrained me from confronting them. Good, she said. We need them to incriminate themselves. She called for FBI backup. The very next morning, a heated, packed HOA emergency meeting was called to ram through new bylaws consolidating Richard's power. Instead, I rose and delivered a detailed presentation, diplomatic skills in full force, exposing shell companies, inflated expenditures, weapon license lapses, and video proof of Marcus pointing a gun at Amy. At her signal, Amy projected the 3 a.m. footage. The room erupted. Marcus, fueled by rage, lunged at me with a concealed weapon. In a single fluid movement, Amy disarmed and cuffed him face down on the floor. Officer Rodriguez and FDIC Special Agent Marcus Reed stepped in immediately, placing both Marcus and Richard Hayes under arrest. Richard for fraud and embezzlement. Vanessa's brother's security firm was dissolved. In the stunned aftermath, Jessica and Linda assumed interim HOA leadership. Neighbors who once cowered now greeted us warmly. 3 months later, as I watched Amy prepare to depart on her next assignment, Richard and Vanessa's sprawling mansion stood for sale, its dark legacy finally exposed. Amy summed it up best. Never point a gun at someone when you don't know who they are, especially if she's an FBI tactical commander with a knack for community building. And in Willow Ridge, that lesson became legend.